as well. So I'd like to start now by having Mary Lasky come to the podium. And the podium's all yours. And let me take some of my, I make little messes and leave them all over like crumbs.
Thank you, Chuck. And it's very nice to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk. I am one of those concerned citizens that heard from Chuck talk about what it is, and then from the last, I would say, year and a half, I've been really involved of what is going on with all of this. I think that as we have looked out, and we have talked about some of that today, about here in the Washington, D.C. area, in June we had the derecho. In October we had Sandy, the hurricane, and so we're seeing things happen, and we need to be prepared for the hurricane. There was a lot of announcements out. People were getting prepared for it, and we were very fortunate here in this area because the storm really passed us by and went and hit New Jersey and New York. And one of the things that happened with that is that the rest of the country, all of us, could send people up to New Jersey and New York to help them. And so that was really good because we could all go up there and help. But there are situations, as we've been talking about today, where it would be so massive that we wouldn't have people to be rushing in and help us. And so what are we going to do if we have a situation where it's so big that we're really on our own? So there's several things that I think that we could be doing. One of the people that has been going around talking about sheltering in place is a person by the name of Janet Clements, and she will go, it's part of FEMA Regional Catastrophic Preparedness Grant Program, and she will go around and help people know how to shelter in place. And one of the things that has happened in the United States is there's only about 10% of our citizens who are prepared. And when you stop and think about the Mormons in their church say you have to be prepared as part of that church, and there's about 6% of the country, so that means about 4% of the rest of the country is really prepared. That kind of number is really chilling. One of the things that Janet has found is in the discussion about sheltering in place is that she can get people to really stop thinking about what is going on in their lives. So I'd like to take a moment and have you all think, what if you had to stay in this room for the next 24 hours and you couldn't go home and you had to stay here? What is going on in your life that would be of a problem in the next 24 hours if you had to stay in this room or in this building for the next 24 hours? So, like, is there medicine that you have to have on a regular kind of basis that you wouldn't have? Are there meetings, things that going on, your kids are at school and you have to pick them up? What are the kinds of things that you have to be thinking about? And then think about that you need to really be prepared. And often we think that we need to be prepared for like a day, for 2 days. Well, maybe some of us during the derecho or during Sandy were out for a week. I mean, there's still people in New York that's like, I would say nearly 2 months later that are still suffering. So we need to be prepared for longer than a short period of time. And so that kind of brings me to the fact that if in an EMP we were to have a situation where all of our computers are gone, our cars don't operate, because that's what we're talking about. If you read the book 1 second after, it really gives you a vivid picture of what kind of world we'd live in if this were to happen. So how could we go about making part of our electrical power? So even if we could make part of it, that would be great. There are solar panels that you could get for your house, but just remember, often the solar panels are there to help you get power back onto the grid, and not necessarily, if the grid goes down, does that mean that your magic happens and you can now make your own electrical power? So you have to have batteries, etc. So there's things that happen there. When we think of what if we didn't have any electrical power for a month, 2 months, we're talking here even a year or 18 months, it would change the way that we do society. And we would be back, 2/3 of the American public would be dying. That was the number that was expressed this morning. So if that were to happen, we would want to be able to make some of our own food. And so how can you go about doing that? There are ways in barrels that you can make potatoes and that kind of thing. So you don't have to have a huge acre place or 5 acres or whatever in order to be able to do this. Some of us could be doing things in a very creative kind of way. One of the things that I worry most about in all of these disasters, it has been what happens with communications is really the key to how are we going to survive? How are you going to communicate with your family? What are you going to do if you have responsibilities at work, kind of things. So being able to communicate is extremely important. And if communications are down, what are we going to do? So Chuck has an expression about communication down. So I like that kind of phrase about what are we going to do when we can't communicate. And I don't know about the EMP, what happens in our fire stations, but in a tabletop exercise that was held in Howard County earlier this year, we looked at things, and one of the things that happened was in your communications, you might have to have runners that actually go out to the fire departments and have them communicate with other people. So all of us probably have a fire department that's pretty close, so that's one of those ways. So as we think more and more about how are we going to communicate, if all of the communication methods are down, I saw lots of you checking your Blackberries or iPhones or whatever. I know I was checking mine, and we've just become a society so tied to our electronic capabilities. But if we don't have that, how are we going to communicate? So one of the things that I just mentioned is what about our businesses? And our businesses are really important, and having a continuity plan is really important. The businesses in 9/11 that had a plan of what to do are the businesses that are still there. The businesses that had no plan are not. One of the things that we've done in the Community Emergency Response Network is look at, we have a lot of small businesses in Howard County, about how to do this easily and simply. There's big plans that the Red Cross has or the Chamber has, etc., and they're usually documents about this big. But in CERN, we created a one-page document, so you can go and do all of the planning that you need to do for your continuity plans with one page, and then you can have a sample one-page document with the back of it having all of the key numbers that you need to reach, and you can keep that paper at home, in your car, and at work. And even at the Applied Physics Lab, where we have big 100-page pandemic plans, etc., we have the one-page variety because that's what you're going to use in an emergency and really follow what is going on. So I highly recommend it. It's there for the work that CERN has done is out there at www.cernhc for Howard County.org, and you can go out there and get any of this material for your businesses. There's also checklists, which there's a lot of checklists that the Red Cross has, or et cetera, or ready.gov, that says what can you do about being prepared personally. And so just multiply that by a lot, since we're talking about EMPs. So being prepared is really important. The local government, the state government, the federal government isn't going to be there to protect you. You're going to be on your own. So being prepared is really important. So thank you, Chuck.
Thank you.